Hi everybody, Mike Hancock here, and welcome to today's what we call intelligence update. And we've got a highly intelligent being on the other end of the line from Merimbula in Australia, Rick Schnabel. And Rick's been a friend of mine for many years. I think we go a long way back. I think we're the same age, to be quite honest, Rick. So I'm not sure who's older, maybe you or me by a couple of months, but Rick, joining us on the call today, we've got people, I see Spain on the call, we've got South Africa, I just saw the Netherlands check in, Dubai's on the call, we've got Australia, of course, New Zealand on the call, and Ireland. So you've got quite a few different places that you're going to be sharing with today. Now, when I first met Rick, he was an NLP expert, and one of the early people who really did study and understand neuro-linguistic programming at a very, very deep level. So I'm excited to have you on the call today. Rick, how you been?
I've been very, very well. Very, very good.
That's good. Before we jump into the questions and our topics today, I just wanted to ask you about this. I followed with concern more than interest, your journey through the bushfires in Australia. What was it? The start of 2019, I think. And
yeah.
And you really had a tough time there. You'd relocated your family a couple of years before that out of Melbourne, and basically semi-retired to the coast, and made a really wise move that I thought at the time. I remember speaking to you a couple of times over then. And then came the bushfires. Tell me a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like a piece of beauty, really, when you get challenge. And in some cases, many people had incredible tragedies run through their lives. When this fire, we could actually see it from our home. And I can remember it was leading up to my birthday, and we were going to have a big jam on our balcony. So we had all the musos in the area going to come around, and so we were looking for this great night, and it was pensive because you started to already smell the smoke going through the air, and you could see this glow. And it was getting more and more precarious. But it's one of those things that I digitized my entire life. Like, I can remember staying up till about 4 a.m. in the morning, just digitizing all these documents. And I remember it got very, very close. And I said to the family, I said, "What do you guys want to do?" I said, "Look, I think I'm crazy enough to stay and defend, but what do you guys want to do?" And they all said that they really wanted to go. So what we did is we packed up everything. We took, all our, real personal possessions, I guess. And it was that one choice. I remember looking at all my guitars, thinking, okay, you can come. Oh my God, the Gibson, you're just going to have to burn.
No, you can't do that. No, I'm sorry, no.
But
Fenders, yes, but Gibsons, no.
Well, I was the opposite. I had my Fender Tele, and I actually just got that for my birthday. And I thought, that's got to come with us. And so it makes you really selective, I think. And you saw the community come together as well in that particular time. We were lucky by probably about 8 hours, I think, where it would have been one more strong northerly wind, and it would have just come right over our house, and we would have lost everything. But it turned around, and then all of a sudden it rained, and it was a blessing for a lot of people. But I think it's one of those times where you really look at your life and think to yourself, what is really critical, what's important, and what's not important.
That's why I wanted to bring it up as a start to this, because you are, your background is really an understanding mindset in people. You're really somebody who speaks out for freedom. You're a freedom entrepreneur, and freedom is one of the 3 things that we do for our clients. So our mandate for people is prosperity, freedom, and purpose. So you sit right in the freedom zone. Yeah. But I doubt anybody has really had to come to the point where they've had to choose what has to burn and what gets saved. And it's a very fascinating mindset. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. I remember in my very first long-term relationship, when I left, I packed up all the guitars, didn't leave one, in the back of my car that was jam-packed to the top. Took whatever clothes could fit around them and left, and everything else stayed. All the other toys that I had, and that was the days when I had a lot of toys. So that was in the days when I was materially focused. And it was really interesting that after like a couple of months, there was not one thing I could even remember really owning, sort of that I cared about. But guitars were the most important thing. So once you'd done that and the family had done that, what was the process then like, returning back home afterwards and realizing that everything was basically still there?
Well, I guess that the thing was, this was part, I think, for me, and I think my family, it was the whole digitization thing, the whole looking at our lives and thinking to ourselves, are those photos really, really important? Or are they okay just to digitally keep them, so we can still look at them, print them out, do all that sort of stuff? And I found myself through that particular time becoming far less, like you, materialistic. I started to value more the sort of connections that you had with people. And I valued more the opportunities of creating those special experiences. But I think to some degree, it also built into me my deeper level purpose. And I realized that, at the end of the day, I mean, it's inevitable. We're all just going to disappear, depart from Earth at some point. And I started to think very much more about, actually, you can remember this. I'm going back to Bali. Can you remember Entrepreneur Business School where we were playing there? And we were asked those three questions, how many people were born over the last 1,000 years in order for you to be here? The second question was, what legacy did they leave? And the third question was, what legacy will you leave? And I think that and the bushfires and all of the stuff that had gone on made me realize that I really wanted to get focused on leaving my legacy more in a digital form than anything. And I thought the best thing that I could ever leave is all the things that I've learned in my life that's really propelled my life and made my life easier and freer and more joyful.
That's a beautiful place to start. And you're so right. I mean, I remember when we sold our place in Auckland a few years back and put a lot of stuff in storage. Well, actually everything. The storage unit was packed to the nines. And then I remember going back there 6 months later and saying, oh, let's go check out the storage. And before we got there, Lundy, my partner, said to me, Mike, name 3 things that are in storage. I said, my guitars. She said, okay, what else? I said, I've got a keyboard. She said, okay, what else? I said, I think there's a fridge. She said, what else? And I went blank. She said, everything else can go.
Yeah.
Right. And probably you should get rid of the fridge as well. And, 90% of the stuff went. I did find a few other things that I wanted, but 90% of it went. And on our last trip there, just before COVID, I digitized probably 500 out of 20,000 photos and threw the rest out. So I totally agree with you on that. We've got Rick Schnabel with us today, and a fascinating and fabulous individual, somebody I've known for a very, very long time as well. Rick, tell me what freedom means to you as a sort of opening up to this discussion on freedom today.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess I'll go back to explain it. I remember for me personally, I came from a very poor family with, migrant type attitude. They were courageous. They migrated over to Australia. I was then born, and, they had been, they went through the Second World War. They went through a depression, and they very much had, what we would classify as a poverty mentality. So I, of course, imbibed that. It became part of me, and it was everything that I did in my life. And I saw so many people who were financially successful in their lives, and that became very much my focus. I was very money driven. very shallow in a lot of senses in the early part of my transformational journey. But the thing that I learned is I had many mentors. I was doing a huge amount of neuro-linguistic programming work on myself, changing my beliefs and so forth. And all of a sudden, money was coming from everywhere. And I got absolutely everything I ever wanted. I was a multi-best-selling author. I was a speaker. I was a trainer. I was a coach. And I was very successful at all of these things. And the mentors that I was working with were really busy. They were multimillionaires, but really busy. Trying to get time with them was really challenging. And I remember I was coaching in a clinic. I jumped in a cab, raced off to to go to Sydney on a flight to do a talk. They were announcing me as I raced into the room. I got up on stage, did my talk, then got off stage, shook a few hands, said hello, jumped back in a cab, went back on the plane. And I can remember the air crew, the lady was opposite me, and she said, you really need to say thank you to the gentleman and the lady next to you. And I said, why is that? She said, oh my God, you look so tired. You slept on his shoulder and then you slept on her shoulder for part of the flight. And I was so tired. And I thought that what I have exactly what my mentors have. And that was, lots of money was coming into my life, but I had no time. For me, like time for Rick Schnabel was void. There was none of that. And it was all busy, busy, busy. And I thought to myself, the thing that I do have is I have what most people would describe as success. And I went with this model, but I didn't have any freedom at all. And I was on 7 days a week, 356 days a year. And I was always writing another book or always doing another talk or doing another training. And then in 2012, I looked at our lives and we were, prior to that point, we were 100% analog. And I had to show up for everything to get paid. And I thought, I want to change this game. And of course, that's when we made the decision to move out of a big city and move to Merimbula. And I wanted my life back. And so we went through our entire world and said, can we get ourselves to a point that we could almost be, 60 to 80% digital, where we could live anywhere in the world, work from anywhere in the world without, having to show up all the time. And freedom to me, I think, is really living a rich life, because so many people have got a lot of money, but no freedom. Absolutely. And I wanted freedom. And freedom to me means being able to make choices that, give you joy rather than feeling you have to show up to, to fill the coffers or make ends meet, those sorts of things. And I'm glad I said goodbye to that life, because it was nuts.
Yeah, definitely. I've been there, so I fully understand it. And we work 4 days a week now, and we probably have 8 weeks a year off. And I think our clients, many of whom are on this call, think we don't do much at all. But when we work, and we don't mess around. And so, and I know you're very much the same. But so I guess you got that mindset that you didn't want to be like your parents. But if you could give the listeners sort of one mindset hack to get them on a path to creating that freedom lifestyle, what would be the sort of top of mind thing that comes up?
Well, I think the one mindset hack is largely based on our questions, the questions that we ask ourselves. What I was asking myself for many, many years is, how can I be financially successful? So, of course, I found my mentors and I followed exactly what they did and ended up with the sort of lives that they had. So I was hugely busy and it was crazy. But I then asked myself a different question. How can I work 3 days a week and actually make more than I make now? And so everything started to focus very much on strategies to make that a reality. So it was a much better question, and it was certainly a much better outcome. But the truth is, I'm a big believer of strategies and mindset. If you really master those two things, you've got it made. You know, you've got to know what sort of mindset you really need in order to create the life that you want. And so your beliefs have to be congruent with that. Your values have to be congruent with that. Your neural patterns have to be congruent with that. Your behaviors, of course, are the outcomes of all of that. And certainly then you've got to have really good strategies that actually really get you there. So I really think it's ask yourself the right question to create what you think is the right life.
Yeah, well, the quality of life comes down to the quality of your question. So you're speaking my truth there. And it's interesting, Rick, because just right at the moment, we've got a survey going out to a lot of our newer clients. And, we do this every once in a while to make sure we're doing okay. Last time we surveyed them, 75% of them had increased sales in the first 12 months with us, with an average increase of 76%. At the moment where it sits, and I'm not saying it'll end up here, at the moment, we've got a 100% increase in sales with an average of about 130% in the first 12 months. Now, I look at that, obviously I'm very pleased about that, but I also know, and I'm saying this because I've got some, longer term clients on this call as well, that they're still working really hard, a lot of those people. Like, I remember, and I'm looking at one person's name on the screen here, and I remember when I said, why do you want to become a client of ours? He said, well, I want to be like you guys. But the fact of the matter is, he's almost there. He's almost there, I think. He's built his income fantastically over the last few years. His influence has gone up. He's got clients internationally now and all of those sort of things, but still working very, very hard. What would be sort of one tip that you could give him in specific before I move on to my next actual question? So this one's for him. He knows who he is.
So basically, he's really, really busy, and he's at a point where he's just at full capacity. I would say one of the things I think is really, really key is work out what your key drivers are and focus on your key drivers. Like, for example, I hear so many people, I coach a lot of coaches, and, quite often, they're saying, Rick, how do you get all your clients? How do you do that? And then I'll say, what are you doing right now? And they'll say, well, I'm posting every day on Facebook. I'm running Facebook ads. I'm doing videos. I'm writing my book. I'm and so forth. And off they go. But I see so many trying to do everything, and they really don't do any one of them at a masterful level. They kind of, what it's like. You learn something new and you become okay at it and you become average at it. But if you keep focusing on it, keep looking for what are the key drivers in that thing. Like I've got one client who's a YouTube legend. He's got millions and millions of people who basically subscribe to him. And, he makes millions of dollars, on YouTube. When we first started coaching, I remember he would make about $1.2 million annually. Now he almost makes that a month. And the thing is that he's mastered the YouTube game. That's what is really his mastery. And I found too that my game was the speaking game. Like every time, I analyzed my entire behaviors, and I found that every time I got up on a stage, my income spiked. It was a big spike. Yep. And so what I did is I just focused on that. Sure, I did a few YouTubes and things like that as well, but focused mainly on the key driver. And the key driver was public speaking, and aiming to get on many stages over the year. And what would happen is all of a sudden, there'd be this massive income surge every time I did it. So what I would suggest to him is work out what is really working for him. Where are the areas that he's making the biggest amount of income surges, and focus on really mastering that game, you know, and get beyond the average. Start now getting to, you know, really the subtleties, you know, what do you do in order to make that work?
Yeah, very good. And I think spot on, in fact. I mean, we really micro study where our business comes from. So for instance, Stages is one of our main ones. And I know if I have an audience less than 100 people, Rick, that we average $445 per seat in revenue over the next 12 months from purchases from that group. We've studied it for years. We know that number backwards. And I think this is really important. Now, when we started talking today, it's really fun talking to you because I haven't done this with you on this format for quite a while. So I'm really interested in your responses and how they've changed and morphed over the years. But you mentioned the word destiny. I love that word. You know, I think it's a fantastic word. But what does that mean to you, and why is it such a strong calling for you?
I find that I would prefer to live a life of purpose and a life of meaning than just be successful at something, or, you know, just do what everyone else thinks you should do, must do, have to do. And I see destiny as that element that really gives you a deep level purpose. For example, I was helping one of my students this morning, and she just needed a few little tweaks to really get things rocking and rolling. And she said to me, she said, gee, you really know your stuff. And I said, well, this is the longest career I've ever had. You know, I've now been doing this for almost 20 years now. And the reason I do it, and I want to keep doing it for another 20 years, maybe even more, is because I love what I do. I really enjoy what I do. And I feel like it's my purpose. It's my destiny. It's who I am. It's almost who I believe I was born to become. And it's that drive. It's like that internal drive. No one kicks me up the butt and says, do some research on neurology. You know, do some research on how do you get a person from A to B, you know, when they've got this problem or that problem. Every time I write a new book, I love the research part of it, you know, where you're working off your base knowledge and you go, let's go deeper. Let's start researching from the metaphysical angle or the psychology angle or the, you know, or the science angle. And, you know, you dive deep because it's your destiny. You feel that it's really your destiny. It's your calling.
No, it's beautiful that you say that. And if we look at the people that are on this call, you know, we've got a range of clients on this call. From our perspective, Rick, we've got people who are very new. I'm you know, looking at one or two of them now who are new to us, and we've got people who've been around a long time. So if you've got sort of like 3 questions or even a couple of questions that can help people understand their destiny a little bit more, what would they be?
I find that there are what, who, and how question. And, you know, for example, it's great with hindsight, by the way. You know, as you're going on the journey, you know, you fumble around and you kind of find your space. But now that I've found my space and have for the last 20 or so years, it's very easy now to teach and say, hey, this is how you do it. But it's a what question you begin from. And the what question, essentially, I find, is whenever I'm working with someone, and if they say, Rick, you know, how do you find your destiny? Usually what I'll do is I'll ask them, what is the biggest challenge that you seem to be facing on a regular basis? Or what's the one that hurts the most? Or what has the biggest pain point? And, you know, what you often find in that, it's almost like, I believe, now, by the way, this is just my belief system, but I believe that we are almost encoded with a challenge or given a challenge at birth that says, this is going to be your biggest challenge. Your life's mission, should you accept it, is to move through that challenge. So for me, it was, coming from a poverty, parenting, a poverty mindset. And so I don't believe it was my ultimate destiny to show people how to make more money, but it became my thing in the early days. I was helping lots and lots of people to increase their incomes, and that was my big focus. But I believe that what my real destiny is to teach people how to get out of the illusion game, out of the trap of their own thinking. And it was to teach people how to think differently so that they could create a new reality. Because let's be honest, how we think determines what we do. And if you change how you think, you can do new things. Like a belief system is like, I see it as an on and off button. If you believe that you could become a multimillionaire, then won't necessarily mean you're going to get there, but it means that you're going to give it a damn good shot. But if you don't believe that's possible for you, you'll never, ever even journey down that path. So the most important thing is really, what is the first question? What is the biggest challenge that I've faced in my life? So that's where I would start.
Right.
The next question I would ask is who? Who really inspires you? And I'll use myself as an example. Walt Disney was one of my greatest inspirators. He was a guy that I loved because he thought big. I loved because he created things, just created things through creativity. And he literally created his entire income. Like I heard recently, and I don't quote me on the figure, but during COVID, I heard that Disney World had lost something like $83 billion. Now that's what they lost. So it gives you a sense of the scope of that as a business. Walt Disney created that. And the greatest thing is your next possibility could be your next creation. Like I created Life Beyond Limits. It started from nothing. And now it's become a transformational company, but it started from nothing. So the next is who inspires you. So it often gives you a sense of your how, how you may do your destiny. So for me, I found that creativity is fantastic. If I've ever wanted more income, it's really easy. I just create something new and put it out there. When COVID hit, we had a whole bunch of our students who said, please show us how to do online courses. Show us how you've been making money over all these years with online, because we can't go out and teach. We can't, we're in lockdown. So we created a program called Income Incubator, teaching people how to go from woe to go, where they have no idea how to create online courses, to actually making money. We had a grandmother who was technically phobic. And she told me today she's got 6,500 students in her program now, and she went from zero. So the next is how. Now, the how is eliciting your genius, often through the people who inspire you. And so when you get a sense of your what, your who, and then of course how you're going to create your destiny, then really master that game. Get in there and build your skill if you need more skill. Change your mindset if you need to think differently. But most of all, calibrate on your behavior. If you're not doing anything, then all of that amounts to naught. So you need to change how you think, so you start doing the stuff that's really going to create the life that you really ultimately want. So it's really a what, a who, and a how.
Very, very good. And I hope hopefully everybody's written that down, because that's some real genius there, Rick. Thank you so much. I've come across a lot of people recently, and when I say a lot, it might be 5, But, you know, I always notice patterns when a pattern starts to shift. You know, when something starts to shift, there's a reason for it. And I wanted to get your insight on this before we go on to the next question I've really got for you, which I want to shift state a little bit. But what I've noticed in this pattern is that there's a lot of people who are really struggling to move from their current state to where they want to go because they're already spending money to be in their current state. And I'll give you a specific example. I was talking to an accountant recently who's got a brand specialist and a digital marketing specialist at the moment. And they're spending probably, I don't know, 2,000 Australian dollars a month at the moment, rebuilding their brand and rebuilding their digital marketing. I had a look at it. It's not going to get them anywhere. You know, it's really not. It's like a sea of sameness. So, but I've seen that recently, and it's really interesting because, you know, I sort of said to this guy, because I'm very straightforward, as people on this call know, I said, you know, it looks all very nice, but it's not going to get you anything. It's actually just mediocre. You look like another version of a polished accountant in the marketplace, and I can't see anything there that's going to bring in clients. Yes, he says, but I'm already committed to it, and I think I need to go the yard on this one. So I've seen that quite a bit. I just saw another one from somebody in New Zealand, actually, that she's going with what she got because she feels she's committed to it. You know, what's your opinion on that, and where are people's mindsets at when they think that?
I think people more than ever love patterns. You know, me included. We all love patterns, because when we can get in a pattern, it's easy. We don't have to think anymore. You know, we're just in a routine of a pattern. And I can recall when I was getting mentoring, you know, I invested big money and a lot of times with mentors in my life, because I got sick and tired of trying to fumble my way, trying to find things, particularly with pseudo experts. I decided I wanted to work with people who actually, it was obvious that they were experts. They were really good at what they did. But the thing that I found was, at first, I felt, I'll be open and honest with you, I felt intimidated. I felt small, you know, I felt tiny. And you know, the money I was making and the awareness that I had created was nothing in proportion to my mentors at the time. And so it was hard when they were telling me to do things. You know, I can recall one of my mentors, you know, said to me, you know, hey, what's your key driver is public speaking. You're very good at it. You know, I've never seen anyone engage an audience like you do. You know, why don't you do it more? And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. And he said to me, he said, Rick, I'm not an entertainer. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, every time we get together, you sit there and you take lots of notes. And I feel like I'm telling you the same thing, you know? And he said, I want application. And he said, you know, as well as I know, you need to get up on stages more. When are you going to do that? And I said, okay, this month I'm going to organize an event myself and I'll get up on stage. And he said, awesome. He said, so this month, and, you know, put the actual time measure on me. So what I did, it was the very first time that I got up on a stage. And at that time, you know, I was teaching neuro-linguistic programming, I was coaching. So they were the only things that I really had to sell. So I promoted them, and I made in 1 hour what I had made in the 3 months prior. So all of a sudden, it was like something popped in my brain. I went, oh my God, I was so scared of the fact that I'd go up on stage and I wouldn't be able to replicate what I had done in that moment. So I did it again, but this time I made a whole year's income in one talk. And it was kind of like, once I'd done that, I could never, ever go back again. I could never go back to working so hard for so little. And I realized that was my key driver. That was my thing. And it took a lot of courage and I guess a little bit about, you know, sucking it up and really having to, you know, deal with a level of, let's call it shame. And by the way, I've heard that word so many times in my coaching over the last couple of weeks. And I keep, as I tell my clients, shame has no purpose. There is no purpose for shame. So forget shame and, you know, just work with your mentors, work with people who are really good at what they do, and be okay with the fact that they're doing better than you. And, you know, I think if anything, one of the things that I've been with me and my coach that I've been doing a lot on is getting rid of that ego, getting rid of that one that goes, oh my God, I feel so small. You know, if you hear yourself talking like that, shut it up, because there's really, be okay where you are, be okay that, you know, you're working with great people to take you to great places, and be fine with that. But sometimes I think we get into this idea that we're less, or, you know, we're not as good, you know, and that's what you use your coach for. Get rid of all those programs, you know, so you're not saying that in your head anymore. You know, these successful people are just as good as you. And, you know, they're, you know, I've found a lot of wonderful, nice, helpful people that don't judge you.
No, that's right. And I think that's the thing, is that once you start seeking out the mentors like that at that level, you've just got to go to that level, and you've got to make sure. I loved your word pseudo mentors. And unfortunately, with all the social media and fake news and everything, there's a gazillion pseudo mentors out there for people. So, you know, it's really up to people to look into their hearts to find the right people. There's no doubt about that. But then the people on this call have already done that, so we don't have to worry about them. It's for the others. So, Rick, tell me, if somebody's stuck in a job or even a business, now, you've probably experienced this a lot yourself. People fall into businesses. They sort of came out of a corporate, they go, oh, what can I do now? I don't want to work in a company again, or I can't, or whatever. So they start their own business. They use some skills that they've got there. Now it's 3, 5, 8, 10 years down the track, and they're sort of grinding their way out of bed every day going, is this what I even want to do with my life? And they know it's not. What's the process, the simple Rick Schnabel process for transitioning from we don't want to be to we really want to be?
Yeah, okay. I guess to start, I'll take you back to my journey. My first journey was as a coach, and I can remember I was working for News Limited. I was working in marketing, and I had a journalist who had just done this story on this new industry that was coming into Australia called life coaching. And she did the story, she did the interview, and she marched straight in my office. And I remember she threw this big white envelope on my desk, and she said, "That's you, Rick Schnabel." And I said, "Wow, I've been promoted to an envelope." and she said, no, I've done a story on a thing called life coaching, and you are a natural life coach. And I said, "What's life coaching?" And she said, "Well, it's kind of like when you help people on their life path." And she, you know, I said, "What's in the envelope?" And she said, "Oh, there's a video, there's introductory information, da, da, da." Now, I can remember I felt really scared. It was almost like I just intuitively knew that I was going to love doing this. So I kept that envelope shut. I didn't even open it. I left it shut for about 18 months until I recall I broke up in a relationship. I moved to an apartment. I bought an apartment in South Bank near Melbourne. And I was opening up these boxes. I just put, this is back in the days of video players. I just put the video player up, the television up, and set all that up, and opened the next box, and there was that envelope. And I thought, okay, opened it up, put the video in, and I watched it. And oh my God, it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. It called me, but I had this program in my head, this belief system in my head that said, how the hell are you going to make what you're making now life coaching? I mean, it's a new industry. You don't know how to do it. You don't know how to make money with it. You know, how are you going to do that? So I went to an introduction night, and I can remember I took my best friend with me, and because he said, what are you doing tonight? And I said, I'm going to this introduction on life coaching. And he said, I'll come with you. So we sat together, and they started telling us all about life coaching. And he nudges me and he says, this is awesome. This is us. And I was already ready. I had my excuses in my head all planned. And he said, let's do this. I'm going to do this. Let's do it. And I said, Tony, you know, I don't have the time, you know, which is usually excuse number one, or number two, actually. And he said, rubbish. He said, just take annual leave. You know, you've got 4 weeks annual leave, just like I've got 4 weeks annual leave. And I went, okay, next excuse, my number one. Tony, I don't have the money. You know, I think it was about $7.5 grand at the time to study and become an accredited life coach. And he said, you know, that motorbike that you've got, that you keep telling me that you're going to sell one day. He said, how much would you get for that if you sold it? And I said, oh, I don't know, about 16. And he said, there you go. Sell the bike and you get change. And I can remember I put a sign on this motorbike that was the worst for sale sign you've ever seen. And I didn't advertise it anywhere. I really self-sabotaged myself enormously, which I didn't even know that what I was doing. And it was Friday, I remember, was the final enrollment day. Thursday night, I get a phone call and someone wanted to check out the motorbike. Then I get another phone call while this guy's trying out my motorbike, you know, wanting to check out the motorbike. Now I've got 2 people who want this damn motorbike. So it's sold and we go into the course. Now, the biggest challenge that we usually have is it's kind of like, this is where we are and this is where we want to be. And it's kind of like, how do I get there? And some of us think very black and white. And I was then thinking very black and white. I have to leave this job in order to create this whole new job. No, you don't. You know, you've got 8 hours a day working, 8 hours a day sleeping, perhaps. You've also got another 8 hours a day to start building your new vision, your new business. So that's what I did. I basically, you know, kept working with my job. That was my cash flow. And then I started building my coaching business on the side. Now, at first it was very slow. You know, I wasn't doing fantastically, but then I learned neuro-linguistic programming and I started to play with my beliefs, play with my patterns, and all of a sudden I started doing very well. And now I was at the point that I was almost earning as much coaching as I was in my full-time job. So it was an easy transition. So what I suggest is that what you do is, first of all, work out how much money you need just to survive. You know, in truth, a lot of people don't know the answer to that question. So I'd start that first. Work out what you need, what's your base? What do you need to keep yourself going? And then do some tweaks. You know, what can I do without? You know, get your overheads as low as possible to make that transition. And then what you do is start building your vision in your own time, part-time, you know, in the evenings. And, you know, I give a model to my students now. I still teach online NLP and life coaching these days. And I tell my students that you can build around $50,000 a year, which I know for some of you that's not enough, but $50,000 a year, just working 1 hour a week, 5 days a week for about 50 weeks a year at about $200 per coaching session, which is so doable. And so if you need 100 grand, for example, well, then that's half of what you need. And when you hit that half, it's very easy to make up the other half, with the other 7 hours a day. And, so work with a model, a model that works, and, start fleshing this out, pen and paper, break out the abacus, start punching calculators and work out what you need to do financially. And I think if you really want to make that transition, and for me, in truth, I wasn't so happy at News Limited. And I just knew what it would be like being a full-time coach. And I remember when I made that transition, I had a clinic, which, by the way, I don't recommend if you want to get into coaching these days, to have a clinic. Keep your overheads low. Do it all on Zoom. Yeah, we do all our coaching on Zoom now. And, so your overheads are low. But back then, I had a clinic, and I can remember driving home, and it was one of those beautiful, beautiful nights, where the air was warm. I had all the windows down, driving down, thinking, I've done it. This is my life. I now help people. And that's what I do full time. I help people. And in that day, I had helped, it wasn't that many clients, but it was about 3 or 4 clients that day. And I was buzzing. I was thinking this was the best thing that I've ever done. And I've been doing it ever since, so create a strategy for your transition is what I would suggest. It's possible. It really is. If you think it's impossible, get rid of those beliefs. Shift your thinking until you can make it a reality. Because, we do so much in our day, which we call work. I don't call what I do work, but I still work 3 days a week, usually about 8 hours a day. And if you're going to do, something for 3 days, 5 days, however many days, make it something that you really love doing, and then it's not work. It's easy.
Exactly. I think I've got one more question for you, and then we'll open it up for any questions to round out the hour. And Rick, it's been really great because you've given people so much surety is a good word, that, that their mindset is all that they need. But what's the one thing that keeps people stuck where they are, and what can you do about it?
I really think it's an I can't pattern. In psychology, they call it a negative inhibitive habit pattern. And, don't say that with too many tequilas, but the thing is, the negative inhibitive habit pattern is basically, we learn very early in our lives, I can. Like as a kid, you can do anything. Yep. You can touch things, you can play with things, and you can do anything, achieve anything. The very first time you're told, don't, you can't, don't touch that, etc., you start getting that with regularity, and we start building a negative inhibitive habit pattern, which we go from I can to I can't. The thing that I would be doing mostly is getting rid of all of your can'ts. Right. If I had the power, I would pull that word out of the dictionary. There is no such word as can't. There's only do or don't, as Mr. Miyagi used to say. It's either do or don't. There's no such thing as can't. So stop all the can'ts. Get them out of your neurology. I don't believe in positivity, but I believe in productivity. Be productive. Keep moving yourself forward. And if you can't do something, it's because you don't believe you can do something. And then work with a coach. Get deep. Really get in your neurology. Get a coach that actually gets right into your brain and shifts programming. So you move those I can'ts to I cans. And the moment it's an I can, you just get on and you do.
You get on and you do. At the moment it becomes an I can. Fantastic, fantastic insights. Folks, let's open it up for any questions. I'll just change my view here of everybody so I can see you all. If you want to ask Rick a question, just feel free. Just jot up your hands and I'll see you.
Cool. While you're thinking of questions, guys, I really hope that I've helped today to, open up your thinking a bit about what is possible. And if there's something coming up right now that you're thinking, jeepers, how do I do that? Or how do I do this? Go ahead and ask. So, Philippe.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have an interesting one. How do you identify your blind spot? By definition, they are hard to get. And assuming you do, how do you handle them? Because they tend to be elusive.
Yeah, I think, it's like that old question of you don't know what you don't know until, of course, you know it. And in all honesty, I think most of us are not very good at blind spots whatsoever. I usually think the easiest way for a blind spot is work with your mentor or coach. They're the ones that are really going to see it. And all you have to do is say, this is where I want to be, and let them do all the hard work, asking you the questions as to why you're not getting there. But in truth, another way that you can actually do it if you don't have a coach is look for your pain points. Those points when someone says something or something happens and you feel that, ooh, that feeling when you feel bad about yourself, or you feel belittled, or you shrink, or you don't feel as good as you think you could be or might be. Look for those pain points, and I would really investigate those pain points. For example, one thing that I find comes up a lot for, clients that I've been working with is they will say something like, but Rick, I don't think I can do that, or I don't think I can do what you do in that space. I'm not as good as you. And you go, wait a minute, whoa. I do not want to hear I'm not as good as you. Because the truth is you're as good. If not, you could be better. I'm not that great at things. I may be lucky. But the thing is, I want to find out when you decided that you weren't as good as, or you couldn't do that thing. And 9 out of 10, you find yourself working with them when they were 9 years old, and, they didn't get that girlfriend or that boyfriend, or they didn't get that, toy that they wanted at Christmas, or that puppy dog, or that this or that. And you find that a lot of who we are today, most of the work that I find as a coach, you're often going back and undoing the programs, where they said, I'm not good enough, or I can't do that, or I'm not smart enough. I'm working with a landscaper at the moment. This guy's a smart guy, but oh my God, there's so many things. And he wants to be a coach. He wants to sell his landscaping business, and he wants to be a coach. And he said to me about 2 sessions ago, he said, I just feel that maybe, I'm finding the information a little bit hard to stick, to remember it all. And I said to him, come on, be honest. This is all new information. It's going to take you a while for it to stick. But the only way it's going to stick is when you apply it, when you use it, rather than just trying to remember a book is ridiculous. Remember an activity and a life is easy. So I said, when did you decide you weren't smart enough? And boom, we go back to boarding school, and he's told that he'll never amount to anything, blah, 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 some of those wonderful teachers that we had. So I know that's a very long and elongated answer to your question, Philippe, but look for the pain points and look at what makes you feel terrible. And I know we don't like to go there, but boy, there's some gold in them hills, or in them valleys.
Absolutely, Rick. I think that's fantastic, because in our past lies the answers to our futures. And often when people say those things to me, I always say, I just respond back. I go, no, that's not you. That's not who you are. That's what you learnt at some stage in your past that's still in you, but it's not who you are. So let's focus on who you are. Rick, it's been a phenomenal journey with you this morning. Thanks so much and this afternoon your time. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom here. What's the best way for you that people can contact you directly if they want to follow through on something? Is it to go to the Life Beyond Limits website or your LinkedIn, or how would you like that?
Yeah, probably the Life Beyond Limits website's probably the best place. There's a contact section there, and you can contact me directly. In the coaching section where our coaches are, you can see my page there. There's even a little thing where you can book a time to have a chat if you've got any challenges, or you want to find out and ask a question or something along that line. That's probably the best place.
Well, Rick's definitely an expert in freedom. You're beating me by one day. I said to Lundy just on the weekend, I said next year I want to get down to 3.5 days a week, and then move to the 3 days probably the year after that. So look forward to me being less available, folks, as I take Rick's advice. Rick, thanks so much for your time today, and look forward to seeing something. If you ever want to sell a cheap Gibson, well, I've got a good home for them.
Yeah, I do like my Gibsons. I do like the Gibsons. I know you're SG. No,
I'm a Les Paul man. Yeah, I'm
Les Paul. Yeah.
And to everybody else on the call who has no idea what we're talking about, we're now in alien world. So thanks so much for you being all here today. Rick, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you everyone for being here today.